Now I know Nicole has a block, and I don't think you do, Richard, but it was this position, Nicole, with the, tilting the block. So that's the pose if you've got a block, and I know Nicole does. And I think I showed Nicole once with the chair um, for your head. You can put the block like this, and then if you had the chair, then you don't have stress on the neck. So that, but it's a nice upper chest opening. If you don't have a block, you can just use a cushion, roll up a blanket, but you can also put something. You can even put a book here. Put a book here, and whatever way you can find a chest opener. Now, to get a little bit more engagement in the body, you can really work the legs, but also, like, here's a piece of furniture for me, so I'll show the practicality of it. You can go in a pose like this, pressing the feet there so you're engaging the legs, and then that helps to engage the core, so that when you do the back bend, you're just not all floppy everywhere else. Yeah, so, and just depending on your neck. But if you have two blocks, that's a nice way to do it. So that's the option for the pose. What I like about it is it really gets underneath the shoulder blade into the thoracic spine, getting a chest lift. I remember, I think I first came across using the wooden blocks like that and putting them right there when I was first in New Zealand in the early 2000s with my Iyengar teacher, and she, had these wonderful blocks, and it feels good. I know some people want the softness, but those foam blocks aren't as stable, and these are those really wonderful cork blocks. So I really like the cork blocks personally, because they've got the stability of the wooden blocks, but they also have a little bit more softness than the wooden blocks. So anyway, that's just a preference, and I always suggest people have multiple blocks if you can, because they're always useful for different poses. And when we used to do this live in class, we would use different blocks for different things. So as you're, leaning into this, and it's really nice with the head on the chair too, you can really focus on your breath. This way I don't have as much stress on my neck. See if you can really feel the side body and the armpits when you bring the breath in. And as you go into this, just letting go of anything around thinking about how your day has been or what your day is going to be. So try not to plan, to just give yourself this time that we're going to be together and focus on the yoga. Now, if you're doing something with blocks, a nice thing to do is also bring the arms overhead. You can get a bit of a stretch in the arms. And if you have the block under your head, you can also bend the arms down with the elbows up to the ceiling. So that's another option if you have those things with you. If not, You can just bring the arms overhead, or you can actually hold the elbows, and that'll give you a real opening through the arms and the armpits. And so because we tend to do a lot of this rolling over, we're trying to counteract that sometimes, and that one's a nice way to hold your arms in that pose. So and then just take the next few minutes to complete whatever the poses you're doing. And then if you've got that block there, you can slowly move it away. Just sit up for a minute and just notice if you feel anything different in the front chest. And I didn't even do that very long, but it feels like I'm very open in the front of the shoulder blades and the chest. And then again, bring the feet on the floor. And actually it'd be nice to do it this way. So bring the feet on the floor, cup your hands under the thighs, and then just slowly roll back down to the floor. And then just slide the feet in so that the knees are up to the ceiling. You're bending into the thigh sockets. And then inhale the knees to the chest, extend through the heels up to the ceiling. Inhale the knees, feet on the floor. Again, you can challenge your arm position with the hands under the head if that gives you more of what you need today. You can also hold the armpits over the head or bring the arms straight. So it's always interesting to play with the arm positions. And another thing I like to do is hold the block between my hands. And that really engages my arms and gives me a little weight, actually, especially if I hover it from the ground. And that's gives me a little bit more work in that area. And then do 2 more like that. And then just release the legs and the arms down, and just press up and wiggle the hips out if you need to. And then bring the pelvis back to the floor. And we're going to do some leg raises. So again, you can choose your arm position. You can have them down, underneath your head, overhead. So whatever suits you. And then bend the knees into the chest. Really extend through those heels. And then you're exhaling. And if you want more work, you hover, and then you bend the knees in. So depending on your back today, your abdominals, you can either hover, or you can bring them down, or you can have them a little higher when you bend them in. And of course, in your own practice, you can play around with doing them different heights and see what serves you the best. Breathing through your nose. And then the next time you bring the legs down, we're going to go the other direction. Inhale up, bringing the knees towards the chest. Press through the heels. Inhale up. So it's almost like a scooping action. And again, you can monitor how low you bring those heels, or you need them higher up, you just scoop at a different spot. And then do 2 more this way. And then release the legs down. You can press through the feet and just shake out a little bit in your abdominals. And then roll to your side. And we'll just come down on the belly to bring those elbows forward to get a stretch through the armpits. Now make sure that you're really using those legs here when you bring that head down. An alternative, if you have a chair, too, is also to bring the elbows here and put the head down. And then you're kind of like in a tabletop all 4 kind of position. Well, you're not really in all 4s, you're on your knees, but this can also be a comfortable way, a way to engage that pose. And another way to get into it is to really walk the elbows forward so you can get more of a stretch, bringing the head down. The legs are working. And then release those arms. And then come, see if you can bring the forearms down. If you have your block, you can always use that to put your, hands either on the side of it or down on the floor. And then you're just gonna tuck the toes. I think they often call this dolphin pose, but it could also be like a half downward dog. And just shake out the head here. Again, trying to get more stretch through the armpits, through the shoulders. And then bring the knees down and come back into the earlier pose where you walk the elbows forward. Keeping those legs working here. And then come back up with either the hands on the block or forearms on the floor, palms down, and then you tuck the toes and come up. Now, one of the places I used to practice, the Shivananda Center, they used to do a little bit of, this was kind of working towards headstand. And so they would often sort of come forward and come up just to build a little more strength. And if that feels good, you can do that. If not, you can just stay here and try to walk the feet up and really work the legs here. And then bend the knees down again. So start bringing the heart rate up a little bit. And then walk those elbows forward. And another little stretch there. And then release that. And if you had 2 blocks, you could use these. We're going to do some upward facing dog. If you had 2 blocks, you can use those, but you can also not have blocks and just have the hands on the floor. We're just going to practice a little bit of upward facing dog. So the hips are in front of the knees, the shins are long, tops of the feet are on the ground, And we're just going to slowly lift the chest forward. We do engage the abdominals, looking forward, and then coming back into big toes together, knees wide. And I'll show you how with the blocks in the next one, just in case you have blocks. What's nice about blocks is it just gives you more room. And then again, inhale, bring that pelvis in front of the knees. If you've got the blocks, you really press the hands into the blocks, lift the chest forward. Lift the abdominals up. And then you come back into big toes together, knees wide. And here I can really press my hands into the block and find that length through those sit bones. And again, I can get a pretty good stretch through my shoulders this way, keeping my ears parallel with my arms, forearms. And then we'll come into upward facing dog by tucking the toes under, and we'll start using the legs here. So when you tuck the toes under, the legs are long, and you lift the chest up. And then come back into downward facing. And we'll do a little vinyasa cycle. Inhale to plank. Exhale there. Inhale to upward facing. And then exhale to downward facing. We'll take a couple of breaths in each of the downward dogs. Unless you're struggling, and you can always go back into big toes together, knees wide, or Adho Mukha Virasana. So then again, we'll inhale to plank. Exhale there. Inhale to upward. Exhale to downward. One more like this. Inhale to plank. Exhale there. Inhale to upward. Exhale to downward. And then bring the knees down and everybody go into big toes together. Knees wide for a couple of breaths there. Up into all fours, and we'll tuck the toes under and go into a downward facing dog. And then we're going to bend that right knee forward, and you can take your time with this if you really want a little bit of abdominal work. If you need to use your hand to bring it between your hands, you can. So that's another way, is you just use that hand to walk it forward. This is also where the blocks come in handy, where you can bring it between your hands quite easily. And then really press through that back heel so you're engaging that leg. So I've got the right foot forward. If you did a different foot, that's all right. And then bring the hands up to the thigh. Really find the abdominals here. And then if you want to bring the arms up, you can, or you can just keep them down here or on your hips. And then to come down, bring the hands down, and then bring that leg back, and you come into a downward facing dog. And then we'll bend the left leg through. And again, if you want to hold it a few breaths here, you get a little more abdominal work. And if you need to, take your hands and bring it through. You've got that help. And really lengthen, so you can see my knee drop there. What happens when I really press through that heel? Can you see that my back thigh gets more engaged? And then bringing the hands up on the thigh. So I'm really getting into the stability of this pose. Virabhadrasana 1. And then if you want to bring the arms up, you can. Or you can keep them on your hips or on that thigh. And then bring the hands down. And bring that foot back to downward dog. And if you feel like doing that half vinyasa, you can inhale to plank, exhale there, inhale to upward, exhale to downward. Or you can just go into big toes together, knees wide for a couple of breaths. So it depends on where you find that resting pose. You don't want to take too much weight into your shoulders. So if downward dog causes too much, like if you're hanging out like that, then the work's not in your legs, it's too much into your shoulder blades. Once you start really working the legs, you're not taking so much in your arms. So whatever pose you're in, whether it's downward dog or big toes together, knees wide, come back up into downward facing dog. And then again, bend the right knee in, bring it between your hands, and then stabilize that back foot that's turned in. And then really press into the legs, and then you can float your torso up into a Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Or you can always keep the hands on the hips as well. That's permissible. But what's nice in this pose, to come out of it, is to windmill the back arm. And then you've got both hands down. You pivot that left foot in. You bring the right leg back into downward dog. And then either big toes together, knees wide, or you can do the half vinyasa. So you inhale to plank, exhale there. Inhale to upward, exhale downward. And a couple of breaths there, if you can rest in downward dog. And then bend the left leg in between your hands. You've got the blocks, of course, gives you a little more lift. Pivot that right heel down. My back's going to be to you this time. And then find that stability. You can just come up on those fingertips and see if you can find that balance between the feet as I'll fall over. And then slowly lift the upper body up. Come into Virabhadrasana 2 pose. And then again, you windmill the back arm, the right arm, around so you have both hands on the side of the leg. And then bring the left leg back into downward. which you can actually just stay there if that's restful. You can go into big toes together, knees wide, or you can go and do inhale to plank, exhale there, inhale to upward, exhale to downward. So either restful pose that works for you in between the standing poses. And then bending that right knee, coming between the hands, pivoting that left leg down. And this time you just put the right forearm on the thigh and we're just rolling up the top shoulder into Parsvakonasana, side angle lateral pose. So of course you can stay here, or you can inhale the arm up and over. And then you bring the arm down, or you just pivot it forward, bring the hands down, pivot the back leg in, and take the right foot back behind you. And then bending that left leg in between your hands, pivot the right heel down to the floor, and then bring the left arm up on the thigh, and either keep the hand down next to you or up and over, whichever works for you today. And then slowly bring the arms down, bring the pivot on the back leg, bring the left leg back into downward, and either stay here, big toes together, knees wide, or inhale to plank, exhale there, inhale to upward, exhale to downward. And then bending that right leg in between your hands. We're going to slowly inch the back leg up. And if you can lift the arms to your side, you can stay here into Warrior 3 pose. You can bring the arms forward if you can find that balance. Or you can just, this is where the blocks come in handy. You can keep the blocks on the floor, and that gives you a little bit of support. So there's a lot of ways to do this. And then reach that back leg back, hands down, right foot back to downward dog. And then bend the left leg between the hands and slowly inch the back leg up. If you have the blocks, you can come like that, or you can use a chair too. Or the arms can come behind or in front. And then bringing the hands down, reaching that leg back, and then coming back to downward dog. Inhale to plank, exhale there. Inhale to upward, exhale to downward. And then we'll all go down into big toes together, knees wide for a couple of breaths. Stay in big toes together, knees wide. I'm just going to move things a little bit forward. We're going to have a little bit of play with bridge pose. So I don't know what you have to your availability, but you can have a chair, You can have a block, you can have a belt, you know, whatever you've got with you. So there's a couple of different things you can start with. If you have the block to put under your pelvis, you can come into supported bridge for a while. And if you have a chair, what's nice about the chair, which I like, is the feet and then coming up to bridge, holding on to the legs and then coming up this way. So that's a really nice one onto the shoulders. So that's two options depending on what you have at home. You might have a stool. A stool could be fun too. If you had a belt, you can wrap it around the outer part of your ankles and then bring it to the inner part and then hold on to that and really lift up. So if you happen to, you know, so there's a few options, but I'm gonna start just with the block. And in my experiences with lots of Iyengar teachers, we did it the long way, but then sometimes people would put it the other way under the sacrum tailbone. So I like it the width way. And then sometimes I need to walk my feet back in and hold on to the mat, or I guess you can, well, no, you can't really hold on to the block. So by having the supported bridge pose, it's an opportunity to really open the front thigh sockets here, lifting the pelvis up. But at the same time, you're getting the chin, chest to the chin, so you're getting that massaging into the thyroid gland. So then it becomes more like shoulder stand, which is quite nice. Now, if you happen to be on the block, but you can, you can't do this if you can do this on the chair and on the block. You can bring one leg up and straighten it. It might be lower, but the nice thing about the block is that your pelvis should stay pretty level, so that when we try it without the block, and then come down with the foot, press in, and straighten the other leg up. And then bend that leg, and then you can press up and just roll down the spine and just have a few breaths here while we transition into the no prop version. But you can still keep using the props if you really need that support. So now one of the easier ways is to hold the edges of the mat when you do this, is press the heels and slowly roll up, and see if you can really press the heels and really get that lift in the front of the pelvis. And then slowly roll it down. And then on the next one, we're going to try to play with the leg straightening. So I see the sun starting to come in on my face now. So for the next one, we're going to try to do that leg variation. So we won't hold it too long. So press the legs up. You can hold the mat. Step on one foot, bring the other leg up, and bend the leg in. And then step on the other foot and bring the other leg in, up. And then bring that leg in. And then you really press the hips up if you can. And then slowly roll down. Now you could play with that more and, hold it longer. Like you could count the breaths and work your way up to, you can start with 1 or 2 breaths and work your way up to 4 or 5 breaths. But you just want to try to keep that pelvis level. So we'll do one more round of that and see if you can hold it just a little bit longer. So press the legs up, the chest is to the chin. And then see if you can press into the left foot, lift that right leg up. See if you can hold it 2 or 3 breaths. Then bend that leg down, readjust your feet. Press the right foot, inhale the left leg up. See if you can hold it 2 or 3 breaths. And then bring that leg down and slowly roll down. And then you can lift the knees up and just wiggle them side to side, or maybe you want to do a little bit of a circular motion or a little back and forth. Just releasing anything in that lower back. And then set yourself up for whichever Shavasana, feet up the wall you like to do, or feet on the chair, or just pure Shavasana, lying down flat. And what you can do is you can lay down with the legs, knees bent, and then you can extend through one heel, let the leg go, extend through the other heel, let the leg go, if that works for you. So do whichever version suits you tonight, or this morning, or since we have somebody who's on morning time and somebody who's on late afternoon time, it is kind of hilarious. And then just slowly begin to focus on your softening your breath, so that with every exhale, more and more of the back side of your body that's touching the floor begins to spread and soften and meet that mat, the gravity, the earth. And then soften the tops of the toes to the backs of the toes. Tops of the feet are softening to the insteps. Tops of the ankles soften to the back of the ankles and the heels. And the shins, lower legs are softening to the backs of the lower legs, the calf muscles. tops of the knee are softening to the backs of the knee. You can even imagine that there's like a soft ball that's just resting under your knees. And then softening the upper thighs to the back of the thighs, so the quadriceps are softening back to the hamstrings. The thigh sockets soften back to the buttocks. Front of the pelvis softens back to the back of the pelvis, the sacrum. Front of the rib cage softens to the back of the rib cage. Upper chest, sternum area softens back to the shoulder blades and the space between the shoulder blades. Upper arms, biceps are softening back to the triceps. Inner elbow softens back to the point of the elbow. Inner forearm softens to the back of the forearms. Inner wrist softens to the back of the wrist. And the palms are softening to the backs of the hands. And the fingers are in that natural curl. And the throat softens back to the neck. And then the face is softening to the ears and the back of the head. And then slowly begin to deepen your breathing. Find a little bit of movement into your hands, your feet, your toes, your fingers. You can do a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of stretching to bring life back into your body. And you can slowly roll to your right side and come up to sitting. And namaste. Thanks for being here.